So welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to lecture number 4 from the topic of Miscellaneous in this lecture series called Prelims Powerplay 2026. Now, as you all know, through this lecture series, we are revising the entire syllabus for UPSC Prelims examination this time. Okay. In this lecture series, we will cover all current affairs, segregated subject-wise. All current affairs would be covered. You don't have to worry about your current affairs portion. No need to follow these monthly current affairs magazines, PT 365s, nothing. Just follow this lecture series and everything would be revised. But it's not just that. Well, along with these current affairs, we will be covering associated static topics as well. Because we all know that static topics which have some connection with current affairs have a higher chance of featuring in our prelims examination. So through this lecture series, you will revise all current affairs and the associated static topics. Everything would be covered. You have a higher chance of clearing your prelims examination if you follow this lecture series consistently and diligently. And there is one more advantage. If you start now, then you just have to spend 1 hour every day from now till your prelims examination and everything would be revised. Don't delay your revision till the month of March or April because then it will get too overwhelming. Start now through this lecture series and you just have to spend 1 hour of your day. Now, to take the real advantage of this lecture series, you have to follow these 4 crucial steps. Step number 1 is very simple, okay? Watch the lecture on time. Don't keep lectures pending. Watch the lecture on time. Then step number 2 is we will be giving you notes for these lectures, okay? Which will contain some extra information which is not discussed in the lecture. Memorize those notes just after watching the lecture. Then step number 3. Well, we have enrolled you in our WhatsApp groups, which are specifically created to entertain all your doubts, to solve all your doubts. Ask your doubts as soon as they occur to you. Okay, ask them. Don't keep your doubts pending and don't be shy. And step number 4, very important. Well, along with this lecture series, you'll also be getting access to a test series, which will contain an exhaustive list of tests. Well, give those tests on time. Take the advantage of that test series also because the questions are specifically designed in that test series to allow you to practice your MCQs. Okay, give those tests and you have a higher chance of clearing prelims examination. Now, as far as step number 1 is concerned, you don't have to worry about that. Well, the lectures would come on YouTube every day at 9 p.m. But for notes, for WhatsApp groups and for the test series, you would have to register on our app or on our website. The link to our app or website, the registration link, is given in the comments section below. You just have to click on that link, either of the link, and you can register for this Prelims Powerplay 2026. Start now, because if you'll be late, then it will become too difficult for you to revise everything. So start now. All right, enough of the introduction. Let's straight away jump into today's lecture. And our today's topic of discussion is International Court of Justice. The reason why we are discussing International Court of Justice is because this year, in 2025, specifically the month of July, International Court of Justice gave a landmark ruling which will decide climate-related international law. It gave a landmark ruling on climate law, international climate law. Okay? Now, what was that landmark ruling? We'll talk about it. But like I said before, we'll also cover the associated static topics. So the current affairs portion is that landmark ruling. But the static topic is, what is ICJ? What is its composition? How many judges are there? What is India's connection with ICJ? Okay, how many cases has India been involved in as far as ICJ is concerned? These are some of the static topics which we should also know about. So we'll cover all these things in today's lecture. Pay close attention because there is a high chance that an MCQ might be asked from ICJ because of that landmark ruling in your prelims examination. So make sure that you give your 100%. And let's begin. All right. So, miscellaneous lecture number 4, and the topic is International Court of Justice. Okay. Now, remember, in yesterday's lecture, we talked about International Criminal Court. And in yesterday's lecture, I talked about this issue in brief that International Criminal Court and ICJ are 2 different judicial organs, international judicial organs. Number 1 difference is ICJ is a UN body. ICC is not a UN body. Okay? And number 2 is ICJ only listens to disputes between countries, whereas ICC can also listen to cases involving allegations on individuals. ICJ will not hear cases related to individuals, only countries. These are the two primary differences that we talked about in the previous lecture. Now let's talk about ICJ in a little bit more detail. Okay, so let's begin. So this is ICJ building and this is its interior building. Okay, now International Court of Justice serves as the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. Remember, ICJ is under UN, ICC was not under UN. Established in 1945 under its charter. Under which charter? UN Charter. Well, United Nations was established by UN Charter. Okay, so under this UN Charter, which explains everything about UN, there is also a mention of ICJ. So it is a principal judicial organ of United Nations. Remember this fact. Okay, now its headquarters are in Hague, which is in Netherlands. This is a similarity between ICC and ICJ. ICC also had its headquarters over here only. Okay, so Hague is basically a judicial city. Okay, because it has headquarters of ICC, Criminal Court, as well as Court of Justice. Now let's gather some more details about ICJ. Okay, so about ICJ, so what is the purpose of ICJ? So to resolve disputes between states and provide advisory opinion on legal questions. Okay, basically the main purpose is to resolve disputes between states. And if there is any question with respect to international law, any UN treaty, UN agreement, well, if there is any confusion, then ICJ will give legal clarity on that confusion also under its advisory opinion. Make sense? Okay. We'll talk about ICJ's jurisdiction in a few moments from now. But as of now, just remember its headquarters, Peace Palace in Hague, Netherlands. So remember this building is called Peace Palace in Hague, Netherlands. Okay. Now the official language for ICJ is English and French. So all its judgments, proceedings would be in English and French. It has a total of 15 judges and these 15 judges are elected for a period of 9 years. So every judge has a 9-year term. Okay, and these judges are elected by both United Nations General Assembly and United Nations Security Council. They need to secure majority votes in UNGA and Security Council. Clear? Now, judges require an absolute majority. Basically, the majority of votes in both UNGA and UNSC. With elections every 3 years. So elections take place every 3 years. Okay, for 1/3 of the seats. So there are 15 judges. So for 5 judges every 3 years. Okay, so let's suppose if there is any confusion, let me clear this confusion. So there are 15 judges. So let's suppose in 2006, elections for these 5 judges took place. Then in 2009, these 5 judges. Then in 2012, these 5 judges. Okay, but every judge serves for 9 years, but 1/3 retire or their term ends every 3 years. That makes sense, right? One more question that can be asked: these judges are eligible for re-election. Okay, and the famous example is, well, India has an Indian citizen is a judge in this ICJ. His name is Dalveer Bhandari. We'll talk about him. Okay, he has been in ICJ since 2012 and his term would end in 2027. Okay, he'll serve for 18 years, around 18 years. Now, and I mean, he was re-elected. There is some confusion with respect to that, but his 9-year term ended in like around about 2020. Okay, 2021. So he was re-elected. So he has been in ICJ for a long time. Okay, so remember this part. Re-election is possible. Clear? Now, let's talk about the jurisdiction of ICJ. What type of cases can be heard by ICJ? So ICJ has 2 types of jurisdictions. Okay, 2 types, remember. Remember the names of these 2 types of jurisdictions. Number 1 is called contentious jurisdiction. What do you mean by contentious jurisdiction? Contentious means that if there is a dispute between 2 states, 2 or more states, that is contentious jurisdiction. So ICJ handles contentious cases only with state consent. So if there is a legal dispute between India and Pakistan, with respect to anything or with respect to any international law, well, that will be entertained by ICJ by taking the consent of both India and Pakistan. Now, once India and Pakistan, both of them have given their consent, then the opinion of ICJ will become legally binding. Okay, after giving consent. Now, their dispute can be with respect to various treaties, declarations, special agreements, many other things. But remember, if there is a statement that contentious jurisdiction or contentious judgments of ICJ are legally binding, that is a correct statement, because ICJ won't start the case unless the two parties have given their consent. But once they have given their consent, then it is legally binding. Okay? And so this is jurisdiction number one. The next category is advisory jurisdiction. The court provides non-binding but authoritative legal opinions on questions referred to it by authorized international bodies. So authorized international bodies like General Assembly of UN, Security Council of UN, International Labour Organization, and many other organizations of UN, if they refer a legal question to ICJ, ICJ will give its legal opinion, but that is non-binding. That is why it is called advisory. Make sense? Okay. Now the official languages are English and French, and proceedings emphasize state equality. All states are equal. Now, what if ICJ gave a judgment and Pakistan is not following that judgment? Okay, it is legally binding, but Pakistan refused to follow it. Now, in India, if Supreme Court gives a judgment and any person refuses to follow it, well, Supreme Court has the control of India's police force. But if Pakistan refuses ICJ's judgment, what will ICJ do? ICJ does not have any police force. So what would ICJ do? ICJ would tell United Nations Security Council to take appropriate action because this organization is not following. Okay, this is the thing. So it has no police force. If state fails to comply with the judgment, the other party may refer the matter to UNSC, which can decide on measures, appropriate measures. Simple. Okay. Now, this is everything you need to know about ICJ. But what has been India's association with ICJ? So, unlike International Criminal Court, where India was not a member, India is a member of ICJ. Okay, remember this. And so far in its history, India has been involved in only 6 cases of ICJ. 6 cases only. Now, the list of those 6 cases is given in your notes. Okay. First case was with Portugal, then with Pakistan. 4 were with Pakistan. Okay. So one was with Portugal, then one was with Marshall Islands. This was the case. But mostly we have been involved in cases with Pakistan. The famous one was the Kulbhushan Jadhav case. Okay. So these are India's ICJ cases which are given in your notes. So take a look at from that. One more thing about India's association with ICJ. Okay. And that is, well, an Indian judge is serving in ICJ. Remember I told you about this judge a few moments back. Let's talk about him. Justice Dalveer Bhandari, who has been a member of ICJ since 2012, was re-elected for a term ending in 2027, serving as esteemed representative of India. First elected in 2012 and he was re-elected in 2017 for a 9-year term. Okay. His significance is because he was re-elected, he blocked one seat in that 15 judge seat. He blocked one seat, okay, from India. And because of that, such was the contribution of, such is the esteem and respect for Dalveer Bhandari that he blocked one seat. And because of that blockage, okay, I shouldn't use the term blockage, but because of that, because he occupied one seat, UK lost their seat in the 15 judge group. So he's quite significant and he has participated in some landmark judgments so far. Okay. Now, this is all you need to know as far as ICJ is concerned. But now let's talk about the current affairs portion. Because in July 2025, ICJ gave a landmark judgment. Though that landmark judgment was an advisory opinion, yet it was landmark. And that landmark judgment was very important for climate change. Because through that ruling, ICJ basically said that all states are obligated to fight against climate change. Okay, so what was that landmark judgment all about? Let's talk about this. Okay, so recent advisory opinion of ICJ. So key details. The ICJ delivered its landmark advisory opinion on July 23rd, 2025 in a response to 2023 UNGA resolution. Remember, Well, if you remember ICJ's jurisdiction, you remember that advisory jurisdiction can only be given if authorized international bodies refer a legal question. So this advisory opinion was given by ICJ because a legal question was referred by UNGA. So in response to the legal question referred to by UNGA, ICJ gave its judgment, requesting clarification on states' obligation to protect the climate system from anthropogenic. Anthropogenic means human caused, okay? Caused by humans. So greenhouse gases emitted by humans. Greenhouse gases are also emitted naturally also, okay? Like for example, through volcanic emissions, eruptions. But anthropogenic means greenhouse gas emissions because of humans and the legal consequences of breaches. So UNGA requested opinion of ICJ. They said that what is the obligation of states to fight against climate change, and if they do not fulfill their obligations, what should happen to them? Okay, so this was the question. This non-binding opinion affirms binding duties under treaties like Paris Agreement, UNFCCC and customary law, emphasizing the 1.5 degrees Celsius global warming target as primary goal and due diligence to prevent significant harm. Now, some key facts about this judgment. So as per this judgment, ICJ clarified states' obligations. What are the obligations of countries? Okay, states' obligations. Every state should prepare, communicate and implement progressively ambitious nationally determined contributions under Paris Agreement, Article 4. So every state should fulfill its obligations under Paris Agreement. Okay. Then states would be held responsible if private players in that state violate greenhouse gas emission target. Okay. Regulate private actors via due diligence, prohibiting new exploration licenses or subsidies that risk greenhouse gas emissions. Then every state is obligated, it is their legal obligation to cooperate on adaptation, finance, technology transfer and capacity building with developed states providing support to vulnerable nations. Developed states providing support to developing countries because they lack money. These are the obligations. Now, what would happen? ICJ also clarified that what would happen if states do not fulfill these legal obligations? What should happen to them? Well, if states do not do that, then these are the consequences. First of all, a case can be filed in ICJ against that state, and ICJ can ask the state to stop its actions which are polluting the environment. So cessation. Then ICJ can demand from that country to give a guarantee of non-repetition, that you won't repeat this action of polluting the environment. And if because of your pollution you have destroyed the environment, then we can seek reparations from you. What reparations? Well, let's suppose India polluted the environment and because of that, Bangladesh or Bhutan suffered. So Bhutan and Bangladesh can demand money, financial reparations. Then they can also demand, that is money or compensation. Let's use a proper word, compensation. Okay, Bangladesh, Bhutan can do that. They can request apology from India also. So reparations can be demanded. Okay, now in its landmark advisory opinion, ICJ clarified that states' failure to fulfill its climate obligations constitutes an international wrongful act. What does this mean? Well, India, if pollutes the environment, is basically a violator for the entire world. So even if because of India's pollution, Bangladesh and Bhutan are suffering, India's actions are impacting the entire world, and therefore it's not just Bangladesh or Bhutan who can go to ICJ demanding reparations. Any third country can also go and demand reparations for Bangladesh and Bhutan, because this thing is basically an action against the entire world. Climate change will affect the entire world. So any state can demand reparations for the affected state, of course, but this was opened. Okay. Because of this judgment, accountability was also expanded. Now remember this Latin term, obligations erga omnes. The court held that climate protection obligations are owed to the entire international community. What we just discussed now. Even if because of India's actions, Bangladesh or Bhutan were affected, well, entire world would be considered a party to this because climate change affects everyone. So the accountability was expanded. Attribution of private conduct. If a private company has polluted the environment in India, India can say that why is the government being held responsible? It's the private person's job. Well, ICJ will say that you are responsible for taking care of these private people, prohibiting these private people from polluting the environment. So this is their and scientific basis for liability. What does this mean? The court affirmed that it is scientifically possible to quantify an individual state's contribution to global emissions. So let's suppose India emitted a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. Okay. Now someone is seeking compensation from India. What would be the monetary value of that compensation? How would you attribute a monetary value to that compensation? Greenhouse gases, let's suppose 2 metric tons of carbon was emitted. Now, how much compensation should be taken from India? Well, ICJ clarified that experts can attribute monetary value. Monetary value is quantifiable in case of greenhouse gas emissions, and that would be demanded from that particular state. So this is the thing. Okay. And in your notes, some extra information is also given with respect to the significance of this judgment. Why was this judgment significant? So do check that out as well. All right. And that would be all. With that, we conclude today's session. I hope it added clarity with respect to this particular current affair, okay, ICJ. And I'm sure that this lecture added value to your preparation, provided you are being consistent and regular with this lecture series and you memorize the lecture from the notes, you ask your doubts regularly, and you are regular with the tests. If you're following all these 4 steps, nothing, extreme bad luck only. But apart from that, nothing can stop you from clearing this year's prelims examination. So stay consistent. And I shall see you next time with another topic in this lecture series called Prelims Powerplay. Thank you, everyone.